delighted to have my new friend, Antione Anderson, with me here today. Antoine and I met probably a few weeks ago, learned a lot about him. It was through a networking event that we both attended. And I was like, I got to get this man on my podcast because we quickly we had alignment on a lot of things. So I was like, yeah, let's share some of your wisdom with my audience. So glad to have you here, Antoine.
I appreciate that, man. Likewise, I was definitely excited about coming on. That conversation that we had right there could have been recorded, honestly, because it was
very true. That's why I love meeting people and knowing that, oh man, this person has a lot of value to share with people. So let's get them in front of as many people as we can. So with that being said, let's do a short introduction. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Antione Anderson. I been married for 19 years, going on 20 years to my better half, Amanda Anderson. We live here in Phoenix, Arizona. We are pastors of a church called 210 Church here in Phoenix, Arizona. We're blessed with the opportunity to church plant here. And so in the process of that, we also are what we call bivocational. So we have our own businesses for a very long time. We were in the community doing group homes for youth and adolescents. And we have since transitioned to be a business coaching, personal coaching, and also helping individuals with their finances. And so at the heart of everything we do is discipleship. In this season, we're really helping individuals identify the different strategies how to manage their finances better, be better stewards of what God has granted them to do. So.
Awesome. Real quick question. Where did you live before Phoenix?
I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. Diehard Chiefs fan. I've been with the Chiefs since I don't know when, since the 80s. So,
oh, nice.
Yes, sir. I'm a diehard Chiefs fan, man. People laugh because they think that my affinity with the Chiefs just started with Patrick Mahomes. And then I start saying things like, if you don't know who David Craig is, Christian Okoye, then you don't know.
Oh, yeah. The Nigerian Nightmare. Wasn't that his nickname?
Yeah, Nigerian Nightmare. I've been a fan of the Chiefs for a long time, but it's because that's where I'm from. Originally from Kansas City, Missouri. Grew up right there. Graduated from a school called Raytown South High School. So Kansas City, Missouri. On the Missouri side, not the Kansas side. We always make that, make sure you understand that there is a difference, right? So yeah, originally from Kansas City, moved to Arizona in 2004, actually.
So are you following the Suns at all?
No.
Okay.
You know what? I'm a basketball fan. I played basketball in high school. My son is really, really good basketball. So I'm a huge basketball fan. But because we didn't have a team growing up, I just like a lot of teams. I like to watch the game. I don't have an alliance or loyalty to a basketball team like I do for football and baseball.
Nice. Well, I know you and I could probably talk sports for a while, but we're going to get into some other topics. But real quick, like one of the things that for me is I don't usually follow teams. I follow players. There is one team that I follow, and that's the Clemson Tigers because I'm right here, 30 minutes away. I grew up a Florida State fan, actually, because I lived in Florida. But then I feel like that the culture got changed a lot not too long ago at Florida State. And I just adopted Clemson as my team and been with them for a while now. But go back to I follow players. Michael Jordan, right? I follow wherever Michael Jordan was on. I mean, he was with the Bulls most of the time. But even when he was
with the Bulls, but yeah.
Peyton Manning. When Peyton Manning switched teams, I just followed Peyton Manning. So,
also, man, yeah, so basketball, I follow players too because again, we don't have a very specific team. I'm a huge MJ fan. We always get into that debate, MJ or LeBron. I'm a huge MJ guy, but I also graduated high school and played during the same time that LeBron did. So nice. I have an immense amount of respect for LeBron as well. However, I'm an MJ guy. LeBron is phenomenal. If you had to ask me who was the greatest ever, I would say MJ's the greatest ever, but LeBron probably has the better longevity for his career. And so, yeah.
I am 100% in agreement with you. And I think it's the young people that didn't actually, like, they see clips of MJ, but they didn't actually watch him play, like, a full games. Like, they just don't get it.
Michael Jordan was a bad man. And I think some of the younger generation now, they really haven't even really seen LeBron at his peak. I mean, I remember one of my friends, he laughs at me all the time because LeBron's first game was phenomenal. And I remember going to work and saying, hey man, this dude is going to be one of the best players to ever play the game. So the younger folks, they just see this version of LeBron. They don't see when he came out of high school and how dominant he was. So
Yeah, yeah, very, very true. So let's dive into it. I have a few fun questions. We've already been having some fun with the sports, but if you have a morning routine and we peeked at it, what's one thing most people wouldn't expect from a financial strategist and a pastor?
I don't know if I would say they wouldn't expect it, but every morning my wife wakes me up to take my kids to school and such. But every morning I do have that time where I spend with prayer, and I do get into my Bible, my word every morning. Like I said, I don't know if they wouldn't necessarily expect that. I drive an electric car, so I take my kids to school, and after I drop my kids off at school, I always go to the charging station. And the charging station serves sort of as that time in the morning where I'm able to kind of have some very dedicated time because I got to charge my car anyway. So I always take books and have prayer time. Sometimes I make phone calls. But yeah, so I don't know if they wouldn't expect that. They probably would with me being a pastor. But yeah, getting up, making sure I have that quiet time, that prayer time, and that time in the word as well.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in taking that time, like priorities, right? Time with the Lord above everything else. Like we do a lot of goal setting. My clients, we share the Profitable Christian Business Planner and Journal, but even in that, I say your main priority is spending time with the Lord. Everything else comes after that.
Yeah, 100%. And we teach our kids that as well. So whenever when I take my children to school, we do daily devotions, and so I've taught them how to end the word. And they know when we first get in the car, before they turn on music, before they take their morning nap, because it's about 30-minute drive to school, they get into their devotion. They have to read it. They have to give me an understanding of what it was about. How does it speak to them? How do they apply it to their life? And then how do they pray it? And so maybe that might be something people may not necessarily, that may be a surprise because my kids are in high school and they know my daughter, she typically sits in the back. My son sits in the front and they get in and say, hey, Dad, I've done my daily devotion. All right, what was it about? Okay, how did it speak to you? How do you apply it to your life? And then how do you pray it? And that's something that we've made a practice of because I want them to be able to take what God gives them out of his word and apply it. Don't just get it from information, but to get that revelation of the truth and how you actually apply that to your life. And then how do you pray it? How do you have conversation with God based on what you get?
Wow. I think that's a gold nugget right there, people. If you're a parent, think about the times like that car time, right? If you're taking kids to school, boom, you've got their captured attention during that time, right? Sometimes it's hard to get your kids' attention all in one place. So that would be a perfect time if you want to adapt something that Antoine does. I think it do you wonders in raising your children and following in the right things to do. So thanks for that, man.
Oh yeah, no problem at all.
All right. So I don't know if you ever watched TED Talks?
I see little clips of them. I'm not like a huge TED Talk person that watch it. Not saying anything bad about them, but I just never really kind of got into them.
Nice. Well, one of my questions for you is if you were to give a speech that wasn't around faith or finance, and perhaps it would be a TED Talk, what topic would you choose?
If it wasn't around faith or finance, that's kind of hard because faith is all in all aspects of my life. I would probably say it would be around purpose, which really can be connected to your faith as well. But if I was doing a TED Talk, I would definitely talk about purpose and the importance of understanding what your purpose is and living your purpose out.
Nice. One of the things that we do on every single Profitable Christian Business podcast is the fill in the blank question. Okay. And your fill in the blank question is kingdom entrepreneurship starts with blank.
Kingdom entrepreneurship starts with godly vision.
Ooh. Yeah, kind of dive into that. How do you develop godly vision?
So if I'm a kingdom entrepreneur, that means that I am a citizen of the kingdom. And the king is the one who essentially sets the standard and moves it forward and sets the vision. So if I'm a kingdom entrepreneur and I don't have godly vision because God is the king, then I'm literally moving my business in a direction that is counter to the kingdom. And so if I don't have godly vision, what am I pursuing? If I'm a kingdom entrepreneur. So if I don't have godly vision, I'm pursuing after something that does not align with the kingdom, which can be counter to the kingdom. So I shouldn't call myself a kingdom entrepreneur. I just call myself an entrepreneur.
So would you say this is something I would believe? But in order to develop that godly vision, or to get God to give you that vision, it would be consistency in your prayer life, right? And praying for God to route your steps.
100%. It would be that consistent prayer life, and then getting familiar with His Word, because the Word kind of sets the tone for us, right? So if you don't have a real Bible foundation that can not only give you a picture, but give you some of the characteristics of the King and some of the things that He's already done. Because a kingdom entrepreneur is not a new thing. This is not something that just got created today. There are many kingdom entrepreneurs in here. And so if I don't have that prayer life, and I'm having conversation with God about it, and then if I don't look at an example of it on an ongoing basis, then it's easy for me to get off track, because what am I measuring this to? What am I comparing this to? So having that prayer life 100%, because that speaks to having communication with God and listening, not just talking, right? I got to be able to listen, but then having the ability to spend time in the Word so that I can see an example, I can get an understanding of what these things actually look like.
Nice. I just had a men's Bible study this morning. We're doing this thing called Man Battles that our pastor had given us. And one of the things that we talked about this morning was the things that we pray for. So many people pray for outcomes, right? And we don't pray for the spiritual fruits. With kind of what you're saying, I'm thinking if we pray more for the spiritual fruits and direction and instruction than we do just on outcomes, our lives would play out totally differently.
Yeah, 100%. Because to be honest, the spiritual fruit really should be as a kingdom entrepreneur, that really should be the goal. I mean, if producing the spiritual fruit is not one of my goals, again, going back to the first question as far as kingdom entrepreneur, then how do I define, or how do I say that I'm a kingdom entrepreneur if I don't have that on the list, right? Because that's what God desires. That's why He desires for us to produce fruit, spiritual fruit, right? It's going to be manifested, if you will, from a natural standpoint, but that is the goal. And if that's not on that list, what am I really doing?
Yeah, I think, as much as I've talked to you before, I think you don't believe in manifestation like I don't. But to say it this way, things become manifested by being obedient and following God's word. It's not like instant manifestation, but if you do the right things in the right order, God will bless you for being obedient. Would you say that?
So, yeah, because manifestation, that word literally, all that means is that we are seeing or experiencing something with one of our five senses, right? And so we believe by faith and we move in faith. And as we move in faith, God comes into agreement with us, and then it takes place in the earth realm. And so it's not saying, oh, I want to manifest this. No, what it's saying is I believe by faith. And as I move in faith, God is going to respond, and then I'll start to see what I have faith for. So when I say manifest, it's definitely not that whole manifestation movement that people have. That's not it at all. Yeah. But it's the reality that the things in which I'm believing God for, the things that He has spoken to me, I will see that come to pass in the earth realm. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. Let's sit here for a second, because one of the things that I like to talk about as well is expectation. A lot of people pray wishes. They don't pray expectation.
That's a good point.
Right? God has made promises, right? And there's promises in His word. So we should expect Him to deliver on His promises that He's already said in His word, right? Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you started off by having a very, I don't want to say controversial statement, but you said something that was really good. I don't know if people caught that. We pray wishes, not even to say godly expectations, right? So I think that when it comes to us making sure that our prayers are in alignment with what God has already promised, what do we have to do? We have to spend time in the Word, because this is the thing. When as a kingdom-minded entrepreneur, my main focus shall not just be this multi-millionaire just for the sake of having multi-million dollars. No,
right.
Finances are those resources or tools to move forward the vision and the mission that God has set forth for my life. And so my goal shouldn't just be something so carnal, if I can say it that way, as God is going to make me this multi-millionaire. Because some of us wish for that, but that's not the reality of it, right? And so if I don't have the right understanding on what His promises are, I will start praying for things. I will start expecting the wrong things, And then when I expect the wrong things and start praying for the wrong things, and those things don't happen, now I become discouraged and stop moving in the direction because I have my eyes on the wrong prize, or my eyes on the wrong thing. When God says, "I never told you that. I never promised you that," and so now I'm upset with Him for something that He never told me to be expecting from Him to begin with.
Yeah, that's awesome. Came up recently in a podcast is sometimes I said this, I think sometimes we should actually pray for withholding, for not God not to give us things because we are not ready, right?
That will require great maturity. I don't know too many people. I don't know too many people that I could say that would want to pray in that capacity to say, "Hey, God, withhold this from me because I'm not ready for that." And I have prayed for some things like that before. I remember there was a season of my life, and I was kind of a very young believer in this journey, actually. And I remember having like a quick 3-minute kind of imagination if I was to win the lottery, right? And all of a sudden, I became very heavy and sorrowful because I started thinking about all these different things. And I remember sharing this with one of the deacons at the church I was at, and I was like, you know what? I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for everything that comes with that. God, you know what? I don't want that right now, right? But it was because I believe God showed me that I wasn't ready for it, and so I had a communication with Him on that light. But a lot of people are not at that place that they can pray and say, "God, I'm not ready for it."
Yeah. But
those are the mature saints.
Yep. And I think, again, just going back to prayer life and praying for God to give you the wisdom, right? Again, another thing that He promises, right? He will give us wisdom if we pray for it. Pray for the wisdom to ask for the things that we are ready for and not the things that we're not, right?
Yeah, 100%. I like that.
Yeah. Another staple of the Profitable Christian Business Podcast is our secret question. And we might have alluded to some of this stuff already, but what is the secret to aligning our careers and businesses with calling and purpose?
Well, it's to know that they're not separate. That's the thing. I heard a preacher say this many years ago. He said, they asked him, how is it that you do all this stuff? And he says, you may see me doing all this stuff, but I see me doing one thing. And so what we tend to do sometimes is we tend to limit our calling to church, what we consider to be church work or ministry work, not understanding that the reality is, if it's my calling, it's my calling wherever I go. It's my calling wherever God has planted me to have that sphere of influence. And so I can't separate what I do in what I would say my career or in the marketplace for what I do or how I serve within the church or the ministry that I'm connected to. I have to understand that it's all connected. Now, it may be expressed differently in those different environments, but it's still me. It's still the same thing. I still have the same calling. I still have the same skills. I still have the same gifting. It's just being able to have that wisdom, like you mentioned. God, how do I express this in this environment, in this area of my life? And so I think if many of us understood that a lot more, I just believe, and maybe I'm just too, optimistic, but I believe if many of us understood that more, then we would see a lot more movement from a kingdom perspective when people are in the marketplace, because they do not separate the two. They don't say, oh, well, this is for church or this is for ministry. No, God is invested in me. He has a calling on my life. He's planted me here. Therefore, my calling goes with me. It don't stay at home. It don't stay at the church. It don't stay in the car. My calling goes where I'm at, where I'm called to be.
Yeah, I love all that. And I think it's especially important for men. And the reason I say that is because we can tend to compartmentalize our lives, right? Yeah, I'm working when I'm working. My family, like, we separate family from work, even, right? Sure. We separate faith from work. It's all like, this is what I'm doing because we are focused. Women can focus on multiple things to get multiple things, more things done at once than we can. So props to them, right?
Yeah, my wife, we have a running joke in my family. My wife tells me all the time that I can't multitask, and I keep trying to prove it wrong, but I can't not prove it wrong. I have a hard time multitasking. So you're right. Women are able to do multiple things at once. Where we as men, we just, many of us don't have that gifting.
Yeah. And there was something that I struggled with, and the reason the Profitable Christian Business Podcast and everything that we do even exists is because I had that conflict with God about faith in the marketplace. And I was like, God, you want me to reach the lost? How am I going to attract the lost when I'm throwing out my Christianity everywhere I go? But
Yeah.
Basically it just intertwined. I can't separate it. It's intertwined with everything that I do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, 100%. I think one of the things one of my favorite quotes that I heard years ago too. He says, you preach and you teach to everyone you come in contact with, but you only use words when you have to. And ultimately, what that spoke to me was that my greatest message, my greatest sermon is how I behave, how I live my life. And so when I go to work, and I had a very real encounter with this. My wife and I worked at a call center some years ago, and I remember this lady, the young lady used to sit across from me. She was not a believer. She was atheist. And she made that known to me. And I was okay with that. But we developed a relationship. And she used to ask me questions about my faith. And she said, I can talk to you about this in ways that I've never been able to talk to anybody else. And she was asking a lot of questions, but it was based on how I carried myself that opened up the opportunity for me to have a conversation with her. And to be honest with you, it was one day that I came in and I must have been annoyed or something because she pulled me to the side. She said, today you're a little bit shorter with the customers than you normally are. And so, I had to check myself because again, she was watching it. And so when we talk about carrying our faith, our Christianity, our belief in Jesus, wherever we go, it's not always going in trying to say something with our mouth. Our greatest witness sometimes can be how we carry ourselves. When you're at your company that you work at and the managers or the job or the CEOs give bad news, well, we're going, we got to cut everybody's salary or whatever the case may be. How do you respond to that? How are you going to separate yourself? Because that's your witness. And then people will say, well, why aren't you upset? Or why aren't you panicking? And then you'll be able to articulate it from your mouth why that is. But you got their attention because of your behavior.
Yeah. That's so good. And the other point about that is I love how you're talking about our Christian witness, because some people will go out there and Bible thump and judge. And
yeah,
to me, it's all about building relationships, and we're all sinners. There's not a one of us that is spotless, right?
Yeah.
So when we go out here in the community, we if a lot of our human nature is like, man, that person is like bad, right?
Yeah.
But how look back at our own past, right? There, like maybe we've grown as Christians, but there were times when someone might have been looking at us like that, right?
Yeah, for sure. You said we got to build a relationship, right? It's like we want to disciple someone without the relationship. That comes across as being a dictator or being judgmental. Even in our businesses, when a lot of businesses become profitable. Why? Because they build a relationship with their customers. Their customers grow to trust them that whatever area of expertise, mine's finance or whatnot, whatever your area of expertise, they build that relationship with where they trust you. Now they're willing to listen to you. The same thing when it comes to discipleship, some things when it comes to your witness. We have to build relationship with people first. And as we build relationship, now they give you permission to speak into their life. In business, now they give you permission to offer them a product. They give you permission to do whatever. It's the same thing. We have to build relationship there first.
Yeah. So key. So I love how you transitioned that, because it doesn't matter whether it's ministry or it's in business. The way that you win people to Christ, and you win people in business is building those relationships.
Yeah, 100%. That's so key. It is. I mean, if me and you are standing on the corner selling hats and somebody walks up that knows you, even if my hat is better, they'll probably buy from you because they know you. They have a relationship with you. My hat can be better than yours. They don't know me. They don't trust me. They don't have a relationship with you. To some degree, we understand that in business. But for whatever reason, again, separating, we don't understand that when it comes to ministry. I got to have a relationship with someone in order to speak into their life so that they can allow me to speak into their life. Because not just anybody's not going to just allow you to speak into their life.
Yeah, love that. Let's transition a little bit. I want people to know more about what you do. So let's talk about finance a little bit. So I know that you help people build wealth outside of the traditional 401k plans.
Yeah.
What's the mindset shift professionals need to make? Let me start over. We'll edit that.
That's okay. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
That's all good.
So let's talk about outside of traditional 401ks. What's the mindset shift professionals need to make to start thinking legacy over limitations?
So it's just that. It's just we have to take a step back and understand there's more than one way. There's always saying there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And so sometimes we are just so locked in on what we're used to or what somebody has been telling us or what everybody else is doing. And that's not always the right way, or that's not always the right thing for me. We are not believers that there's one way. And so we start by really trying to get people to take a step back and be open to learning something different. And it's a challenge. I mean, you say, for instance, if it's talking about somebody, the food that they eat, trying to teach them to eat different. Their mindset says, no, this is the way I'm supposed to eat. The same thing is said with finances. And finances is a very touchy subject for people, which I understand. But the thing is professionals need to understand, okay, let's take a step back. Let's see if what else is out there for us to build legacy. Because before the 401k, for instance, was introduced, what was people doing then? Right? People that don't have a 401k, what are they doing? Not saying, again, not trying to just bash the 401k all the way over the head. There's some benefits, there's some limitations to it. And there's just are. So we just got to be able to come to a place to understand that, listen, let's look at what other ways outside of just what we consider to be traditional, what are some other opportunities for us to be able to build wealth and pass legacy. So that's the first thing is I would say is people just have to have an open mind to listen to what else is out there.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's so confusing. There are so many ways to invest and make money in today's environment. And they just, again, I think let's just touch on relationship again. That's why they need someone like you to build a relationship with them, understand what their needs are, right? And customize what the best thing for them, not just give them a blanket, hey, here's your 401k, go and run with it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you said. There's so many different ways, right? Then I'm gonna try to give you this short example that I kind of share with. You can go to a master chef's kitchen, and they have all these different seasonings, and you can bring your meat to the table, whether it's chicken, whether it's beef, whatever it is, you bring it to the table. But you got all these different seasonings. You can be overwhelmed by just looking in there and seeing all these seasons. You don't necessarily know, what seasons taste like. What does it do for your body? You don't understand all that. You just got all of these amazing choices. Let's just call it that. Unless someone comes in and tells you, hey, this seasoning is good for this, even though it may taste good, it's probably not good for this part of your body. You need someone to come in and kind of give you guidance so that you can make the correct decisions. There's a statistic to say that if someone has, whether it's a financial advisor or someone that is coming alongside of them, giving them some understanding about the different vehicles that are out there, the likelihood for them to be more successful in that area of their life and finances is higher than someone who does not have someone that's coming to give them the understanding. Now, make sure you hear what I said. Not telling them what to do, giving them the understanding. Because a lot of people show up to tell you what to do without giving you the understanding. But you need someone that can show up beside you and say, hey, I need to get the understanding of this. And that's one of the things that kind of separates us, in my opinion, is that we give more understanding. We do this thing called teaching the 3 simple rules of money. And we do it without what I would consider to be a dog in a fight. And so we tell them about these 3 specific areas, very specific areas when it comes to the rules of money. Make sure that they have an understanding of that. And then we show them the different options, including the traditional way of investing. But it's about understanding what these different things, the different tools, different rules of money is, so that they can make a more informed decision on what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. I just had a scenario of that yesterday. I had someone come alongside me in one of my investments, and they just know a whole lot more than I do. And we looked at it, and immediately, maybe it was 2 days ago, but immediately I made the switches that they recommended, and boom, I was losing money. Now I'm making money. Right. So I was trying to do it alone. Right.
Yeah. So 100%. And we typically, a lot of us do, because again, like you said, there's so much out there. It can be so confusing. And then we hear all these horror stories of people and or companies showing up and being more concerned about their bottom line than yours. And there are people out there. There are people in our industry all day long that are showing up to take advantage of people. We know that it's real. That's why it's so important for us to sort of change that narrative, to show that, no, there are individuals out here that genuinely care about what it is that you're doing and how to pass, resources on legacy wise. But a lot of people resist that because of the horror story. So grateful and thank God that you have someone that you trust, that you say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. How can I figure this out? But a lot of people resist that because of the horror stories that they hear.
Yeah, yeah. So getting someone that you trust is huge. Go, I mean, it all circles back to that relationships, right? Building those
Yeah,
relationships and having someone that you can tell actually cares about not just your finances, but you as a person, right?
100%. Yeah. You as a
So,
person, your children,
mhm.
your grandchildren, your great grandchildren that aren't even in existence yet. So yeah,
Again, legacy, right?
absolutely.
Doesn't want you to just have money for today, but have money for your children and their children.
100%.
Nice. So, what's one overlooked financial strategy that believers should consider if they want to secure tax-free retirement?
It's number one, you need to understand that there is such a thing as tax-free retirement. And then I would say that don't, because there's this thing that people feel like life insurance vehicles are these big bad terrible things.
Mhm.
They're not. People have been using them for years. It's just making sure that you have individuals that understand it again, and then understand how to structure it. But again, if you don't have some form of understanding, then you won't know if they know what they're doing. And so you don't have to go to the school and try to figure it all out yourself, but you need to be able to ask questions like when you go into a conversation with a financial advisor or an agent that comes up and is trying to get you to get into a specific product. You need to be asking questions about the product. You need to ask about what are the tax ramifications. Is there a way that we can have some tax exemption or some tax-free portions of this? You need to ask more questions. If I can say another thing that's overlooked, there's no such thing as a bad question except the one you don't ask. So
Mm-hmm.
don't ever feel like that you should not ask questions, because this is dealing with the money that you have worked hard for. God has blessed you with skills, talents, abilities, opportunities to go in and provide for your family. Now you're entrusting this with someone. You need to ask more questions and understand that there are tax-free, legal,
Mm-hmm.
tax-free opportunities that you can build for the future. One of the things that one of the questions I ask people, and this might start a whole nother conversation, but I ask people, I say, listen, if you're a farmer, right, and I gave you 100 seeds in your hand, and I asked you, would you prefer me to tax you on the seed or tax you on the harvest? What would you say? And a lot of people are stuck there. I want you to tax me on the seed, because once
Mm-hmm.
you tax me on the seed, I can give you that percentage of whatever that is, but the harvest now belongs to me because you've already got yours. And so when people start thinking about that, when we think about some of the ways and some of the vehicles that we use to prepare for retirement, many of us are telling, hey, tax us on the harvest and not on
Mm-hmm.
the seed. And so there are
Very
vehicles,
good.
there are ways for us to say, hey, tax us on the seed, meaning tax it up front, pay it up front, and put it in a place and environment that it can grow tax free. And so those things exist out there, but people just need to be made aware of it.
Yeah, I remember I took life insurance, and I'm sure many people still even do this to this day. Life insurance exactly for what it says, that it wasn't a financial vehicle. It was just some way for me, like if something happens to me, my family's taken care of. But there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
And if that's what your sentiment is like if what you think of life insurance is exactly what it says, it's so much more than that. So talk to someone like Antoine.
And if I can say it like this, it's called life insurance. It's not called death insurance. We treat it as death insurance and
Mm-hmm.
not life insurance. And let me clarify, make sure people, just because this is such a hot topic these days, right? Oh, he must be one of those that sell cash value. We offer cash value, but that's not all that we offer. We had a young lady who had a term policy. This is the power of this. Had a term policy. Then she had like a $600,000 term policy, but she had what is called living benefits. She was diagnosed with a terminal cancer.
Oh man.
With life insurance, if you have the right kind of life insurance, term or cash, she had a term policy. She had living benefits on it. The company gave her what is called an accelerated benefit, meaning that they paid her a portion of her death benefit because of her terminal illness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she went through cancer treatment, beat cancer.
Yes.
Now she's cancer free. And the money that was given to her from her death benefit, she turned around and she invested that into some condos for her family.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was tax free, because it came out of the life insurance, she didn't have to pay it back, but she was able to leverage that money to now she has what did you call passive income from this investment, this vehicle that she used from a life insurance policy that she was paying, I think $100 a month. She's an older lady, she's paying $100 a month. And now that paid off where they gave her something like $450,000 accelerated death benefit. And she then turned around and invested this in these condos or whatever, or not condos, but duplexes. And now she has passive income. Why? Because she prepared herself for stuff. She had the right things set up so that she can have a living benefit while she's living, not just while she's dead. And so a lot of times when people hear me say life insurance, they feel as though it's just for the death benefit or it's this cash value thing. That's a part of it, but that's not it in its totality. Life insurance is very simply a vehicle that can be used to get you to a destination, and that's how we communicate it.
Wow, I was captivated by the story, man. God is good. Amen.
Yes.
Hallelujah. Yeah. I heard God provision all through that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely, right. And again, it goes back to if you don't hear those things, you don't know, you don't understand it because you hear all this other stuff. But there are, again, life insurance is just a vehicle. It's not the only vehicle, but it's a vehicle. It's a great vehicle to use, but a lot of people don't utilize it. The statistics say that there is like over 125 million people in the United States that are uninsured, or they're either uninsured or underinsured. Mm-hmm. There's a law that you have to have car insurance. There's a law that it's almost a law that you got to have health insurance pretty much. But life insurance, we know we're going to die. Mm-hmm. We know that everybody's going to die, but how many people are preparing for that?
Right. Wow. Let's talk about this because there may be some people watching. Maybe most of the audience is Christian entrepreneurs. Some of those may not have built their business to where they're financially stable yet, right? Some of them are below, they're not making six figures a year yet with their business. So this idea of having financial legacy maybe escapes them at the moment. What can these people do in order to start on that path?
So you got to start where you are, right? Understand where you are. So the first thing I would say is take a real good look at where they are. Because sometimes what I feel like, where I feel like I am is not really where I'm at. So I may feel like I'm not doing really well, but then when I really take a hard look at it to see, say, you know what, I'm doing better than I thought I was. Or I may feel like I'm doing really well and I'm not doing as good as I thought I was. So the first thing I would say is to take a look at where you are currently, and then get a clear understanding of where you're trying to go. The best time to start is today. And so if I'm a Christian entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, I need to get an understanding of where I'm at today and then where am I going. The third thing I would say after that, after I know where I'm at, after I know where I'm going, then what vehicle am I using to get there? When I say where am I going, it's not just about the revenue or the cash flow within your business, but it's about your family. It's about the retirement. It's about the legacy. Where am I going in that direction? And then how am I going to get there? So for instance, you're in South Carolina, I'm assuming?
Yep.
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, right? So if I'm trying to get to you, I have a few different options on how I can get there. I can take an airplane. I can take a bus. I might be able to take a train. I can even drive a car. All of them will get me to that destination. Some of them will get me quicker, it's more efficient. I may want to do sightseeing. I might want to go to scenic route. That's why I might want to take a car. So I need to be able to identify where I'm at, where I'm going, and then the vehicle that I'm going to go use. And the vehicle that I'm going to use needs to meet the needs that I have. That's why I mentioned the scenic route. So understand where you are, where you're going, and then the vehicle that you need to do to get there.
Something I want to touch on that you said in there, though, is not just the revenue and cash flow. I think you're exactly right. You need to think about what your life is, what your life goals are, and then work backwards. What revenue do I need to make in order to reach that life goal, right?
Yes.
What investments do I need? Like, think about not in terms of just dollars and cents, but think about it in your life. Like, what are you passing down in your legacy, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and if I can speak to that or speak on that, should I say, if you ask many people today, what is the number that they need to retire? How many people do you think would know that answer?
5%.
If that, right?
Right.
If you ask another question on top of that, say, okay, today, what's the number you need to get to pass on the legacy that you want to pass on to your children? What's that number? What's the number that you want to pass on to your grandchildren? What's that number? Right? Mm-hmm. Or what is it that you want to pass on? So when you talk about legacy, it's not about the cash flow revenue per se when it comes to the incomes of the business, but it's also about what I'm trying to pass on to the next generation. And as a Christian entrepreneur, this should be the other question that we ask, and this probably should be higher at the list. What or how many lives do I want to impact for the kingdom through my business? Well, that sounds like a rare question to ask. Well, not really, because this is one thing that I know as a kingdom entrepreneur is that the businesses that we operate, people work at 40 hours, sometimes 60 hours a week. They spend more time at our businesses. So their environment that we create is going to be very impactful in their life. Why? Because they're always there. And so if they're always there, if they're always with me, if they're always hearing my training, my teaching, my mentorship, I need to be able to impact. I need to be sowing seed on a regular basis, because the bigger picture should be that I want to be able to impact them more than just employ them. And so that is some question that we ought to be asking as kingdom entrepreneurs as well.
Boom. That's another gold nugget, especially any of the entrepreneurs that have employees or thinking about having employees. It's more than just giving them a paycheck.
Yeah, 100%.
So awesome. Let's shift gears just a little bit to talk a little bit more about faith. Not that we haven't been talking about faith all through this, because that's just who we are, right? Yeah. But let's talk about financial stewardship as far from a biblical perspective. And we live in an instant gratification culture, a lot of self-reliance. How do you practice godly obedience in today's society?
Well, number one, it's a practice. It's an exercise, right? Again, I mentioned earlier, my son plays basketball. You just don't step on the court and expect to be good. You got to go through some preparation, some training, some exercising, building muscles, so on and so forth, to be able to get to that space that you can do that. And so you got to start with the understanding of, number one, it is God, all of it's God, belongs to God anyway. And so if I can come to an understanding from a perspective of this really is not mine, I'm probably going to take care of his stuff better than I'm going to take care of mine. Somebody loans you something. Some people take more care of other people's stuff than their own. So my perspective has to change first and foremost. Once my perspective changes, then I have to start really with kind of small things. Like there's a debate whether you should tithe or not. I believe in tithing. Some people don't believe in tithing. Whatever. I do believe it's biblical. That's my stance on the Bible. However, if I'm tithing to God, if I'm tithing to God's house, that is a practice that I should also incorporate in my house of saving. I shouldn't spend everything that comes in. So if I'm giving God a tenth, I should probably save a tenth, right? If I'm giving God a tenth, I should probably save a tenth. I have to develop that practice. I also should make sure that I have an account of where this money is going. I seen a commercial the other day. I think it was on, I forget the name of the company, but it was talking about subscriptions. And it was trying to be fun. It was a joke, but I thought about it when it comes to stewardship, because the guy said, well, how many subscriptions do you have? If you're wrong, we're going to let this crocodile in the water with you, or something like that. And he said, I only got 3 subscriptions. And he said, no, I put all your information in this tool, and you have 13 subscriptions, and he let the alligator go. But what that speaks to is that there's so much waste going out that we don't even realize that we are wasting more money than we are actually saving. We're wasting more money than we're actually being more purposeful about. And so we have to have the correct disciplines in place to understand, where's all this money going to? Because if I don't even know where the money's going to, then how do I know if I'm being a good steward over it? And I think, so I got some more, but I'm gonna leave right there. If I don't know where I'm going, what I'm doing with it, then how do I know if I'm being a good steward over it?
Yeah. I'm going to touch on a couple of things there. It's a whole business concept too. It's like, you can't hit a target you don't know. You can't aim at a target you don't see, right? There's so many things. If what you talked about as far as where you want your legacy to end up, if you don't know that, it's going to be hard to hit that target, because you're going to be wondering, aiming aimlessly at something out there that in the distance. Really, really good. Man, I think I lost my train. Oh, tithing. Let me touch on that, because I think I'm totally agreement with you. And there's been moments in my life where I've tithed, and I just speak from experience, right?
Yeah.
When I've been obedient and tithed, it's always come out in my favor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to win the lottery the next day. If tithing's not going to do that for you, but what tithing does is gives you that perspective that it's not yours, it's his. And we tithed when we had nothing. Like my family, we tithed when we had nothing. Just I guess I think maybe subconsciously we're daring. We were challenging God, right? God, we don't got nothing. We're going to give it to you.
Yeah.
Um, and it was amazing what happened after that.
Yeah, trusting him
So,
with it. I mean, I look at it like he's the one that gives us the ability to go and create wealth. He provides that for us. And I think it's really, really interesting because some of the discord, I'm not going to bore you with all this, but some of the conversation I get with people that say, oh, when you look in the Bible, they was talking about, not Caesar, but food and grain and cattle. And I said, but that's what they were doing. That
mhm.
was their business. That was their labor. That is what they were doing. I don't see you bringing that to the church either. So whatever your labor produces, God provides you the ability, the gifting, to be in your right state of mind, the health, the opportunities to go and do that. We should honor him by saying, here to the work. Don't worry about don't worry about everything else. You do it in faith. God, I'll give back to the work because you've blessed me to be able to go out and provide for my family. So I give back towards the work that's going forth in your name.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Let's touch a little bit more on purpose.
Gosh,
What advice do you have for someone that's kind of struggling with their purpose right now?
that's so funny. We had a Bible study on Wednesday. This was the topic because it's talking about John the Baptist. So the first thing I would encourage you to do is to know that you do have a purpose. Some individuals who struggle with it, one of the biggest things they struggle with is their belief that they don't have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They feel inadequate. Their life's experiences has told them that they're worthless. People have probably also told them that you're never going to be nothing. And so they have this belief that I don't have a purpose. I'm just existing until I die. So the first thing I would encourage you is that you do have a purpose. You were made on purpose. God created you on purpose. You are his workmanship, his handiwork, his masterpiece. And God does not create junk. So the first thing I would encourage you and challenge you is to know that you do have a purpose, that God knew exactly what he needed to have done in the earth. That's why he created you. His wisdom is far beyond us. He said, listen, this is going to be something that's going on in this generation. I'm going to create John, Sue, Joe, whomever. I'm a create them this height, this weight. Well, weight can be determined about what we eat. So we'll talk about that later. This height, this skin tone, this in this community with this family at this day and age, because I put something inside of them that the earth needs to have on purpose. So you have a purpose. Don't believe that you don't have a purpose. Secondly, what I would encourage you to do is to be very prayerful. Look in the word. We just had this conversation. We have something that's called a biblical mandate. And so a biblical mandate simply means that I'm reading the word of God and something in the word speaks to me that I can relate to. Some of us say that we see how the seven that was chosen was serving when the apostles was teaching. And that speaks to them because that's what's on their heart. Some say, well, I see how when the prophets went out and shared and declared things openly, that speaks to them. Some of them, when they read Solomon, they see how he was a businessman and wise. That speaks to them. Your biblical mandate, or the thing that speaks to you and you feel like you can relate to closely in the word, could be a key indication that that's what God has put in your heart. And so maybe that your purpose is tied to something like that. Also, if something bothers you, something may bother you that don't bother me. And it's not because I'm good and you're bad, or you're bad and I'm good. It's just simply maybe that's the thing that God has put you in this earth to address. I was walking in the church parking lot with one of my friends, and we were walking together, and he said, man, I'm so tired of people walking past trash and not picking it up. I didn't even see the trash. It was not even on my radar. And so I said, well, where's the trash at? He says, back there. I said, well, why you didn't pick it up? And so he kind of stopped. I said, maybe you saw it because you should have picked it up. So sometimes when things are bothering you, it could very well be because that's tied to your purpose. Maybe that's why God purposed to place you here on the earth to have an answer to that issue. And then also look at your skills, the things that you just naturally do that other people don't do. You may be a good speaker. You may be a good listener. You may be a good singer. You may be a good athlete. You may be a good fill in the blank. Whatever your skill, now skills and gifting, totally different. This is for a different podcast, but whatever skills you have, maybe those are tied to why God created you on purpose and what you're supposed to do when it comes to your purpose. And so believe you have it, understand that God placed you here on purpose. Make sure you're very prayerful, get connected with the Father who created you, get into his word so you can see what your biblical mandate is. And then look at your experience. What do you do easily? What do you do naturally? What do you enjoy doing? And then what annoys you? What bothers you? I know it's probably been a lot of, I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. The only little thing that I feel like I can add to it is being obedient when God tells you something, right?
Yeah.
In that whole thing, because God often wants us to do things when to make us uncomfortable. in our
Yeah.
purpose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's how we grow.
That's the growers. We said the same thing. Yeah, that's the growers.
Yep. So that's awesome. Just because it's still lingering in my head,
Okay.
I'm gonna kind of go back a little bit because you were talking about how people spend money and they often don't know what they're spending money on, right?
Yeah.
My point being is you probably have money to invest, you just don't know it
100.
because
Yeah.
you're spending money on things that could be better allocated somewhere else. So getting with someone like Antoine and having him look at how you're spending your money, he could probably
Yes.
find ways, even if you're under that $100,000 mark of a year,
Oh, yeah.
finding ways that you can help, that you could start investing and making money rather than spending it all.
100%. So let me add on to that. So let me be very clear. Many of our clients are under 100,000. We kind of specialize in what is called the middle class because the middle class don't have the information. And so because the middle class does not have the information, they believe that it's not attainable for them. So they don't believe that it's even possible for them to do. So we specialize in the middle class and we show them things like, no, you can do this. You don't have to have $250,000. You don't have to have $100,000. You don't even have to have $50,000 sitting back waiting. You just have to have a willingness to be able to learn information and then execute it. And not only that, I would like to change the word. You're probably investing in something that you need to be, and you said it, reallocate your investments to something else. You're probably investing into high blood pressure, sugar, diabetes. You're probably investing into some bad habits. You're probably investing into this and that, when you can just take that money that you're putting over there and let's reallocate it to something that's going to benefit you and your family for generations to come. Because what I have discovered is when I sit down with people, and what we know is people are not going to be honest right at first. They're just not. When it comes to their money, they're going to over compensate how much they make, and they're going to undercompensate how much they waste. But when we sit down and we do what we call as a personal financial review, we are able to hit some points. And I always see the light bulb come on. Well, dang, you know what? I do waste money over here. And a lot of people waste money and they don't even know, and they can't even remember. Like I was with a family and they wasn't showing me their banking statement, but they were going down the bank statement because we were doing the PFR. And the husband was like, I don't even remember what we spent this $500 on. They had the store and everything. He couldn't even remember what that $500 went for. And to that, he said, you know what? We have not been good stewards. If I can't even account, I'm looking at the bank account. I'm looking at the statement. I see it was spent at this store, and I can't even tell you what that money was spent on. That's $500 that just went out the window. And so again, if I go back to having an account of it, if I start taking notes or being intentional about seeing those things that I'm spending, then I will see that I have more that I can put in different places. And know this to be true: Satan does want to come steal, kill, and destroy. And if he can steal your resources, if he can steal your finances, he knows he can disrupt our faith in believing that God is Jehovah Jireh, the God that provides. Because if I can steal your resources away, you're not going to believe that God is going to provide for you because you haven't experienced it in your life, because I'm stealing this stuff when you're not even paying attention. And now he disrupts the faith when it comes to finances and stewardship and things of that nature. And then how do I believe that I'm going to be the head and not the tail? How do I believe that I'm going to be the lender and not the borrower? How do I believe those things if I don't experience those things and I have a misbelief that I'll never be able to attain it because I haven't been a good steward over what God has already given me? The Bible tells us this, that he said, I will provide seed for the sower. That means my heart has to be, as a sower, I know where I'm planting my seed. I have an understanding. I'm taking care of those seeds, but that's a heart issue. And so he provides seeds to those who have the heart to sow. And some of us will tell the people, say, well, I'll wait that when God gives it to me, then I'll sow. He's not going to give it to you because he knows your heart.
Man, so good. Thank you, Antoine. This has been awesome. We may have to have a second episode because we alluded to some stuff that we could probably talk more about for sure. Tell the audience where they can find out more about you and check out what you have to offer.
Yeah, so I think I provided you with some links and some Calendly links. So I'm sure that Doug is going to make that available. You can hop on my link. Have a free. All of my consultation, all my conversation, they are free. People say, "What do you mean it's free?" No, it's free because we want to get the information out. We want to teach you. We want to educate you. Once you do that, if you make a decision, we can give you in the right direction. So if you want to connect with me, you can do that. I'm here on TikTok. I do post videos from here and there, just kind of giving some insights, some understanding on some of these tools that we're talking about. If you're here locally in Phoenix, Arizona, we're going to have some events upcoming. Again, all of our workshops and stuff are free, so that people can come and get the information. We want to build a relationship with you. We want to show you these things that we're talking about. We want to show you how it applies to your life. For those that even are in close to retirement age, I've been able, this last week, I've probably helped about 4 different families that are surrounding their retirement age, putting their finances in a place where it's protected and they get what is called lifetime income. And so you can always hop on my calendar if you have questions, if you want to get more information about more stuff that we do, if you want to learn more about those 3 rules of money, hop on my calendar. I can give you a 30 or even a 45-minute session. We'll go over as much as we can in that time frame. And then you drive the car after that. Once you understand it, once you see or hear what we say, then you let us know how we can support you. Because that's the thing. We believe we take care of God's people, God gonna take care of us.
Yeah, I love that. So yes, we will put the links if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching this video. It'll probably either be in the description or in the comments. The links to connect with Anthony. If you're listening to this on
Antoine.
Spotify or
Connect with Antoine.
Yeah, so connect with it, and also social media. We'll have some of his social media links below. We'll have all the links that you could possibly reach out to Anthony with. And yes, we have one last question, Antoine, about before we let any person go, because I don't want to leave any wisdom under a rock, right? Okay. So what parting words of wisdom might you have just off the top of your head for anybody watching or listening?
So for the entrepreneur, this a believer, for the kingdom-minded entrepreneur, I want to encourage you to know that God has placed that on your heart for a reason. I believe that if we all move in our God-given calling from an entrepreneur standpoint, create opportunities for people to come to live their life from the standpoint of working and learning in their careers, that we will be able to impact so many more lives than just going to church on Sundays and Wednesdays for Bible study. So if you're a Christian entrepreneur, if you're a kingdom-minded entrepreneur, be encouraged. Make sure you continue to move in faith. Even when the bank account says 0 and the customers are not knocking at the door, keep moving in faith, because the industry, whatever industry that you're in, my mentor tells me this all the time, it's going to test you before it bless you. The enemy is not just going to release what he is holding that has your name on it. When the children of Israel left Egypt and went through the wilderness, when they got to the promised land, there was still someone there occupying their territory that they had to go in and fight. God opened up the door, but the Bible said that they had to go straight in, meaning on their path, their line, their calling, if I can say it, and fight the enemy that was in their territory. So for all my kingdom-minded entrepreneurs, know that God has an assignment, he has a territory, and that you will be equipped to be able to conquer every territory that he has. For all the believers that are on here and non-believers as such, we have to be good stewards of what God has given us. And so my heart is to make sure that you understand what are those financial principles, so that you can be the head and not the tail, so that you can be the lender and not the borrower. We don't believe in just the manifestation because you thought and because you spoke it. It requires obedience, it requires discipline, and it requires the understanding to know that God said, not Antoine, not Doug, God said that you're the head and not the tail, that you're the lender and not the borrower. And so he's given us the ability to create wealth, and we just have to step into it.
Man, that was so good. So good. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Antoine. And until next time, entrepreneurs, keep moving forward.
Amen.